The Nintendo 64 had a fairly small library of games, so finding the ones that are underappreciated is really hard for anyone to do. Except for me. I am the game collector, and this is Second Opinion Games, and today I count down the top 10 hidden gems for the Nintendo 64.
Second Opinion Games.
Number 10, Blast Corps. When a nuclear missile's out of control and just driving along at a very slow rate, there's only one thing you can do. Hire a demolition team to destroy everything in its path so it has some smooth sailing. Yes, this is probably the worst excuse to have a video game for blowing everything up that ever was, but I don't care because I get to blow everything up. You can control dump trucks, bulldozers, and even giant mechs in your quest of destroying everything. And boy, is it ever satisfying. I also really like the reflections off the different metals, and dump trucks definitely don't control like this at all. This is just mindless, dumb fun that happens to be really fun. Number 9, Beetle Adventure Racing. Now, most people just stuck with Mario Kart, but you could be driving your own Volkswagen Beetle. Now, I used to drive one of these for about 10 years, and I could say they don't control anything like this. Also, the color of your car doesn't really determine the speed and the different attributes of the car. I'm pretty sure that's not how that works. Now, I can say that my Beetle in real life actually drove faster than the cars in this game, because when you hit like 100 miles an hour, the whole car just sort of sucks down to the ground and it grips corners really nice. And this game, though, is still a lot of fun. It encourages you to go off the course, finding some nitrous just outside the main place to drive, with plenty of shortcuts, lots of contrasting environments, and the game just looks really good. It also plays fairly well, and as far as racing games go, even though most people might think it's generic, it definitely stands out amongst the crowd. Number 8, Snowboard Kids 2. Cool Boarders and Mario Kart got together and had a baby. And boy, is it ever an ugly one. All these kids have like the worst character models of all times. But that doesn't mean you don't have a downhill racing game that's a lot of fun with lots of weapons to throw at your opponents. And because it's a little bit different than Mario Kart, you have 2 different weapons and you can choose which order you want to fire them in because they're both assigned to different buttons, and you have a downhill just murder fest that looks beautiful. Also, when you get to the bottom of the hill, you gotta make sure you hit it just to the right, so then you could go up the escalator to put you back to the top of the mountain for another lap around the track. Being ahead here gives you a huge advantage, but don't worry, there is still the rubber banding AI to keep it competitive at all times. This is one of the better looking games for the Nintendo 64, and it definitely plays better too. Number 7, Wayne Gretzky's 3D Hockey. Wayne Gretzky is the great one, and when he got together to make his hockey game, he really showed his stuff, because this is probably one of the best hockey games ever made. The first one was pretty good in its own right, but the second one tops it in almost every way, especially in the difficulty level. If you get too far ahead, the rubber banding AI just starts scoring goals like crazy, which is mighty frustrating, and starts stealing the puck from you non-stop. Now, you can play a traditional game of hockey with all the characters out on the ice, or you could play a more of an NBA Jam style where there's only a few of you, you catch the nets on fire, the hits are bigger, and the rules are thrown right out the window, which is how I prefer to play hockey. Even if you don't like hockey, you're gonna love this game.
Bombs away! He deflects it!
Number 6, Mace the Dark Ages. Now, I grew up in the mall, in the arcade specifically, and there was always one game tucked in the corner that not many people played. Mace was that game, and when I got it for Nintendo 64, I was blown away by the fact that this was almost exactly like the arcade version. You have some of the most badass characters that were ever in video games. You even have finishing moves just like Mortal Kombat, but heck, if I could pull any of them off. There's lots of blood, it's gruesome, and it is fast, frantic action. This is still a pretty good fighting game, even if it doesn't have the polish of some of the other big boys.
Oh my goodness!
Number 5, Duck Dodgers starring Daffy Duck. When other people were playing Banjo-Kazooie, I was playing Duck Dodgers. It starts off with an opening cartoon that's quite funny and well done with lots of voice acting, and then it moves on to a platform collect-a-thon where you try to collect basically everything on the screen, and they fill collectibles everywhere, just like Banjo-Kazooie. The controls are spot on, so when you die, it's entirely your fault. The graphics are still good, and the camera never really gets in the way like other 3D platformers, and the sense of humor here is just divine. I really appreciate Daffy Duck at all times, and I really appreciate this very underappreciated game.
Oh boy, I'm rich!
Number 4, Robotron 64. You better take a crap ton of drugs because you're going to be in for the trip of your lifetime. With the insane bass of the music and the flashing strobing lights with otherwise looks like a really crappy game. This is a twin-stick shooter where you play with 2 Nintendo 64 controllers in order to actually play a twin-stick shooter. Now, and it's really confusing holding the old Trident 64 controller in your right hand, but somehow it feels amazing. Now, you could save anywhere, which is good because you're going to start racking up lives really fast, and the levels feel like they go on forever. Sometimes I'm up to like level 80 or 90, and I think, when is it gonna end? And it never does. Just enough for the drugs to wear off in my system, and then when I take more, I just sort of pass out because, you know, the strobe lighting effects and everything like that. This is a really tight twin-stick shooter, and is definitely one that everyone overlooked. Number 3, we have Desmond 3D. I think that's what it's called. This is one of those Japanese shoot-'em-up games, and on it there are 2 different games. One of them is called Solid Gear. Like, yeah, they're really trying to rip off Metal Gear here pretty hard. Now, this is a fairly good shooter where you collect power-ups, and it's in a 3D environment. Keep in mind that Nintendo 64 only had one shoot-'em-up in the North American release, and that was Star Soldier Vanishing Earth. It was a pretty good game in its own right, and this one is also good. Not as good, though. But there's another game on here. It's a cute-'em-up that I'm just going to call Usage, because I don't know what to call it. Now, I didn't even get hit until level 4 of this game, and I ended up beating it my very first time through. This is just crazy, though. I love the graphics here overall, and finally having another shoot-'em-up on my Nintendo 64 is something that I dreamed of for a long time. Number 2, Fire Electric Pen. It's another Japanese import. And have you ever played Operation? Now try and play Operation with the analog stick of a Nintendo 64, where the smallest mistake and your thing blows up. Also, get screamed at by a very angry Japanese man. Luckily, you can turn this off in the options if you happen to know Japanese, because you could also turn on some other effects that you really don't want at all, just to make the game a lot harder. And when I say this game is hard, I really mean it. I blow up countless times, but when you finally do get to the end of a level, the game really celebrates all the hard work you put in to make it happen. Now, the game itself only has like 5 or 6 levels, but the difficulty here is so extreme, no one will be able to finish them. When I got this card, no one even managed to beat the very first level of the game. That's how hard it was, and I got this used. Number 1, Taz Express. Now, North America here, we completely missed out on this hidden gem because this was a European release only. And Taz, the Tasmanian Devil, is my favorite Looney Tune character, so being able to control him cutting through the side of a mountain with your tornado spin, eating everything in sight, and picking up boxes, and basically it's like an escort mission where you have to guide the box to the end of the level. However, not all the levels are set up like this, and it never becomes too tedious. There's also tons of cameos from the other Looney Tune characters, and what you have here is one of the best Looney Tune games, and certainly the best one starring Taz, the Tasmanian Devil. And that's enough to make it my number 1 pick for best hidden gem for the Nintendo 64. But that's just my opinion. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I had a great time making it. This has been in the works for over a year now, but I wanted to make sure I pretty much had every Nintendo 64 game so I can make the best video possible. And still, this is the best I could come up with. Now, this isn't all of the great Nintendo 64 games. I want to make my own top 10 list a little bit later, but I'm going to make it my own so you won't be seeing the repeats that everyone else has, like Mario Kart and Smash Brothers and Zelda. I'm gonna really make it something special. But if you have any ideas of games that I missed out on that I probably own, just never played, leave me a comment in the comment box down below. I'll be sure to give them a try, and maybe we can make that video just a little bit better. So until later, I will see you again, guys.